Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here to Straight Talk, right here on Bobo 103.1 FM. Time up here into the studio is 4:33. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you had a good Monday. And of course, it looks like a healthy Tuesday. Good afternoon, Mr. Harris. How are you today?
Suffering, my friend, but holding it down.
There you go. I just want you to know, I think perhaps some of those that are looking on us through the video might not be able to see my colleague. I don't know where he's disappeared to, but he's still here with us, not feeling too well, still having his little bit of throat issues. Says he's doing better, but is, I don't know, he's reserving himself a little bit for tomorrow's program. Tomorrow should be exciting. We should be having in here in the studio with us none other than Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, who again was an awesome candidate running in this election. Actually ran, I think that's West-based South, and ran against the now premier, Mr. Andre Ebanks. I don't know what he ate. What was it that they had that advertisement? Before I climb 10,000 feeties, I have a taste of my Wheaties. I don't know what happened in his cereal, but he definitely had the energy to take on the now honorable Andre Ebanks premier. And of course, we welcome that challenge. And we're going to plan on having him here in the studio tomorrow to chat with us, hear a little bit about his run, how it went, what did he learn from that experience, and especially where it is that he's going from here. As I made my calls to the program yesterday, a lot of young persons or persons out there, let's put it that way, who ran for office, doing something very noble, good on behalf of the country, making sacrifices, and they're looking employment. So again, my challenge will be to echo to the Minister Miles, who has promised that he's going to work to get employment for Caymanians, as well as the government. I would imagine that they're behind him on that. Want to encourage them as much as possible. So let's see if we can get these persons back into work as well, that being people like the Sterling Dweens, the Donna Mae Bush, especially because, the reason why I say especially, just for clarity, is because those persons were in the actual government. One might offer and say you have challenges to help someone out in the private sector for now, but you definitely shouldn't have much issue in terms of helping them as it relates to government. And of course, I do want to touch on that a little bit later on as well, because it is still beyond me why we're not implementing what was brought from March of 2013, which is jobs for Caymanians only, which can happen not just in government, but of course in the private sector. So my colleague would normally be doing weather. I can't tell you what the weather's like. I'm not the weatherman, but I can tell you, we did get a little bit of rain, didn't we, Austin? He says we did. I heard a whisper. He said we did get a little bit of rain. And someone was telling us that Tampa was showing something with weather index, which is obviously a kind of what it feels like, 119 degrees. Not anything that I want to be dealing with. Just to read through some of the good news stuff, I think, is how we perhaps start the program. Celebrations Group Limited and the University College of the Cayman Islands, UCCI, have signed a letter of agreement establishing the Celebrations Group Scholarship. The scholarship will provide $2,000 in financial support for the 2025-2026 academic year for a Caymanian student pursuing hospitality management at UCCI. It will cover tuition, fees, books, and course materials, and the recipient will also complete a 3 to 6 month paid internship with luxury event company Celebrations Group Limited. In a UCCI press release on the 28th of July, Dr. Livingston Smith, acting president and CEO of UCCI, described the benefits of the scholarship. Quote, this partnership represents exactly the kind of innovative approach we need to develop Cayman's next generation of hospitality and events professionals. He said, Continuing on, by combining financial support with practical industry experience, removing barriers to education while ensuring our students graduate with both academic credentials and market-rated skills. The scholarship targets students who demonstrate financial need, maintain a minimum of 2.5 GPA, and show strong commitment to academic achievement and community leadership. Selection will be made by UCCI's Scholarship Committee. John Ann V. Borden, CEO of Celebrations Group Limited, emphasized the company's commitment to local talent development. This scholarship reflects our belief that investing in Cayman students today creates the skilled professionals who will drive our industry's continued success tomorrow. Eligible candidates must be Cayman citizens enrolled and are accepted to relevant programs at UCCI. Application requirements are available at ucci.edu.ky/scholarships. I don't expect you to remember that. But the deadline to apply is the 4th of August. So again, for those persons who are either attending, want to attend, I think there's an opportunity here for a scholarship. Want to take our hat off to persons like Ms. Joanne Brown. I know the lady personally. She's been in the community doing lots of great things for many years, and this is just another one. I want to thank them and Celebrations for doing this outreach in terms of aiding our Caymanians to be able to progress. Lots of opportunities there, so hopefully someone will take up the opportunity. Yesterday we were chatting a little bit about deaths on the road, senseless deaths, needless to say. I'm just going to read a little bit about that. 2 road deaths in less than 3 hours in separate crashes. And I think it's fair to say, I have transitioned a little bit of the good news, but a motorcyclist and a driver died in separate incidents in the space of a few hours overnight on Sunday and into Monday morning. In one of the fatal crashes, a 31-year-old died and 3 others were injured, one seriously after a crash on Shamrock Road in Savannah. The Honda Fit left the road near Cool Springs Road in Savannah at about 1:30 a.m. on Monday and crashed into trees. I don't know what to say about that. 1:30 in the morning, crashing into trees. Police said one passenger was critical in the hospital and the other 2 were being treated for what were said to be minor injuries. The crash came just hours after a motorcyclist crashed and died on the Linford-Pearson Highway in Georgetown. Police said the rider appeared to have lost control around 11 p.m. and crashed into trees and bushes at the roadside. The motorcyclist was pronounced dead at the scene by a doctor. No other vehicles were involved in either incident, and the police have not yet released details of the 2 victims. The 2 fatalities bring the death toll on Cayman's road so far this year to 3. Now, I know that there was something supplementary to this where the Royal Cayman Islands Police, and I think there were some statements coming in from Mr. Bush as well, talking about the safety campaign, and I think I have that here. Reckless driving claimed lives, warns new road safety campaign. So the 2 latest fatalities have come on the heels of a new road safety campaign to promote responsible driving, with people being urged to take responsibility for their own safety and to protect those around them. The Smart versus Reckless Driving campaign, stated this week, is aimed at reducing dangerous driving on Cayman's road. It was launched on the day that the 2 people were killed while driving in 2 separate incidents, the first 2 driving fatalities of the year. The campaign urges drivers to reduce fatalities and serious injuries by putting their seatbelts on, not to speed, not to use phones while driving, and never to drive while impaired by alcohol or drugs. This message will be shared throughout the traditional and digital media, workplace outreach, and school programs. The initiative is being led by the National Road Safety Strategy Committee and coordinated by the Ministry of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing, and Infrastructure, with representation from the National Roads Authority, Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, Department of Vehicles and Driver's License, Public Transport Unit, the Ministry of Home Affairs, and district administration, and several other entities. Well, again, I want to take my hat off to the government in terms of, this particular road program. Maybe they've been listening. That's all I can say is that there's definitely too many people speeding on the road, too many accidents, and it's good to see any sort of campaign. I think we can make some suggestions to the relevant persons. I mean, I don't know, advertisements in the cinemas and on social media, different things can be done, but we definitely need to do something in terms of trying to see what we can do to stop people from killing themselves on the road. This here now, my colleague had put together from the, this is an article about the Statistics Office shows increased pressure on household expenses. The Economic and Statistics Office biannual Quality of Life Survey report to fall 2024 indicated a rise in rental costs, which jumped from a median of $3,000 to $3,500 in just 6 months. As housing becomes more expensive, the report indicated that more residents are simultaneously falling behind on their bills. The fall survey shows that 20.2% of respondents were behind on at least one essential payment, with electricity 5.1% and rent 3.9% leading the list. That seems to be right up the alley of what I've been saying here, that if you want to address cost of living, here's two: electricity and mortgages. Caymanians reported higher areas than non-Caymanians, especially electricity and water bills. I'll read that again. Caymanians reported higher arrears than non-Caymanians, especially electricity and water bills. Harris, when I read that, my mind goes to that thing that you put out where there was an average Caymanian salary of $60,000 a year and there was some foreign nationals making $250,000. That might have something to do with it. I don't know. Just a sneaking suspicion. Disconnection from basic services has also increased. According to Statistics Office, 9.6% of households experience at least one disconnection in the 6 months prior to the survey, up from 7% in the spring. Northside was hit hardest. This is interesting. I hope Jay has his ears on. Northside was hit hardest with nearly 1/3 of households, 32.6 facing disconnection from electricity, water, or internet. In addition, fewer households now report having internet on air conditioning, while the percentages of those with housing structure insurance dropped by nearly 4 percentage points to 45.1%. Affordable livable housing has long been a challenge in the Cayman Islands, a problem worsened by rapid population growth. So I guess putting that in the common parlance, in plain English, we're having a situation, as I have said before, about this cost of living. We really need to, and I encourage it, we need to get past the quick, easy, Band-Aid sounding effects of a minimum wage and really try to tackle the problems. And I know there might be some persons who say that, I'm just here upon my throne on this radio and in all of the whatever I can muster seems to be making an argument about minimum wage. I'm saying it, ladies and gentlemen, because my humble opinion is we did this before. It went to $6. Go look at it. It hasn't solved the problem. It's now going to $8.75, and it'll soon be $30, and we'll still be having the same problem. It is happening in every country. Talk to the people who have it, and I think if they speak honestly, they will probably be able to say it's not solving the problem either. Really, at the end of the day, I think if you really want to deal with some of these issues, this survey shows you've got to do something to be able to make this average guy be able to get a reduction in terms of their electricity and in terms of things like their rent. Being able to address issues with the banks, for example, will definitely go a long way in doing things like that. And I also want to say that somewhere in the back of my mind, not to knock anything off of celebrations, but I did see a signing as well by, I think it was Digicel. Did you see that? Let me look for that. There was something there in signing in relation to Digicel also. And I want to see if I can turn to the compass, but I believe it was something to start around August as well. And it was somewhere region of somewhere like 10K. But either way, I'm pretty sure that I got it right. You can take my words for it. That's the summary of it. And the bottom line is we appreciate all those companies that are coming out, stepping up to the plate in whatever way, shape, or form to be able to try to see if we can actually help Caymanians to be able to do these things. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say, what else do I have here to talk about in terms of good news? 2-year-old deaths, sargasm. I don't want to talk anymore about sargasm. I did hear a Barbadian talking on the radio. Always good to hear that. Nice Bayesian accent. Say, man, go blind. We have to deal with this sargasm. Something is going on. But I think they were saying something to the effect that, they were feeding animals with it and even possibly even using it for energy purposes. That was a little bit interesting. Of course, I just love the Barbadian accent. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to be able to get into other discussions with you, and I want to know if there's something out there that's burning on your mind. But some of the things that comes to me is the whole issues with the bank. I want to be able to talk about who gave the banks permission to start taking us in the cashless society direction. I want to be able to again to talk about the fact that, and hopefully can hear your opinions in relation to high mortgages. I don't know about anybody else, but I remember mine going up almost 1,000. And I went to the bank the other day and was higher again. I have no idea what's happening, but you definitely don't see much reductions on it. If you want to call the studio, the number to call here up in the studio is 745-2626. Again, that's 745-2626. Or, of course, if you don't want to call the program, you can send us a text, as my colleague would emphasize, WhatsApp text, 928-2562. That's 928-2562. You can send us a text there, or you can send us a voice message. All right, Harris, say something. Just a little bit something while I look for something here on this, because I want to touch on another issue.
You really like to torture the listening audience, don't you?
By doing what?
By letting me hear my less than glorious radio.
I love in Spanish, we have a little saying, roncabos. I like that rough voice.
You like that rough voice?
You know what's very sexy? When a woman has a voice like that. Come over here when I talk to you. Say, I hear you.
I hear you.
All right.
There was a singer, I think his last name was Adams. I can't remember his first name right now, but he also sang with that bit of a rasp.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily my thing at all. As listeners can tell, there is a bit of improvement from yesterday, but I think I still sound like I'm going through puberty. Hence the reason why I'm letting you do most of the
heavy lifting
today, and just doing my part to run the boards and make you look good.
Yeah, I hear you. I appreciate that, Mr. Harris. I did see...
I'm the government. I'm here to help.
I'm the government. We're here to help. I did see Minister Miles, and God, it just seems like we're just beating the hell out of Minister Miles, but, it's not my fault. I assure you, it's not my fault. Oh, what's that?
It's his fault.
Yeah, it's your fault.
He's making it too easy.
You're making statements that I don't know. It just twists my mind. And to me, when we're talking about the legislation, shouldn't it be jiving? Like, in other words, one shouldn't be taken away from the other. He did make a statement the other day that in relation to temporary permits, for example, for foreign nationals, that the situation is that many of them will come here on a temporary work permit and transfer to another form of employment. And I agree with that completely. And I can also tell you that there are a lot of companies that are bringing people here on temporary work permits, even though they don't have any work for them, just so they can go hunting for the jobs. And those issues, without a doubt, let me make sure and get it clear, without a doubt, those issues need to be addressed. I guess the question is, here is the proposal now, is that persons coming here in a temporary work permit will not be able to transfer until up to 2 years. You have to work for that particular employer. And I don't even know if it's specifying a job. So in other words, you're a busboy, and even though you have the same employer, you can't necessarily elevate. I'm not sure if it's at that level, but it definitely is in relation to the employer. Can't transfer from that employer until after 2 years. And if you attempt to do it, then you have to go home. I think it is for 6 months. All I'm saying is let's just tie this together and see how it weaves. Maybe it's just me. But on one hand, you're saying, I'm very concerned about these foreign nationals, and we can't allow them to come here, live in squalor, and the list goes on. You're showing care and concern about these individuals. And let me take the time out today to agree that we should be our brother's keeper and concern ourselves. There are persons that are coming here because they see an advantage. They want to do better for their family back home. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But now here's what I don't understand. Why then are you putting this same pressure on them? And I'm talking about the innocent persons. And the reason I say that is because I think we have the institutions that can track down where it is being abused and deal with it. That's kind of an enforcement issue. Why is everyone being punished? Because here, if you're talking about these, and it's more so on the Filipino nationals rather than even Jamaicans. And I say that because Jamaica's close by. I'm not sure exactly what a ticket costs, but I believe a ticket's probably somewhere around 300 something bucks, Mr. Harris, 300 something bucks. Whereas let's look at the Filipino national. First of all, it's probably like 24 hours before you can get here. The average ticket's probably going to be somewhere between $1,700, $2,000. And there's a lot of hardship that these people, even the loopholes that their own government puts them through to get here, some of them are finding back doors to be able to get here as well. So to make it now, you're saying that you're concerned about them coming here and not getting $875 because 6 isn't cutting it. But somehow you're preventing them from being able to move, for example, from one person who's paying the helper $1,200 to be able to move to another employer who might pay them $1,400. I just don't get it. I don't see the synergy there. I don't see how that weaves together. I just don't see that makes sense. And so again, I'm almost getting to the point of, I want to get off Minister Miles for a bit, but like the Sopranos, Mr. Harris, every time I try to get off that minister, he says something. And all I'm saying is, with the greatest of respect, I don't see that that's going to work. I don't see how that works to benefit these workers. I think a person who is legitimate, coming here legally, working hard, within reason, should be able to transfer employment. I am pretty confident that the majority, if not all of them, are holding jobs that Caymanians don't want to do. I doubt we want to be nannies. Now, if you were telling me you were even doing this specifically for the financial institutions, I could even say, yeah, I understand. Caymanians want those jobs, but that's not the case. Again, just like minimum wage, this is going to be primarily impacting the poorer workers. Okay? And so I just have some serious concerns about that. I don't know if you share those concerns, but those are the concerns that I have. I do not think that you're making the life better for those individuals. And if I may seem to be taking their side, I am taking their side. I think they should be able to come here and transfer. Now let's get on to the persons that I believe he wants to capture. Right now in the construction industry, you have a situation where, and I know the construction, I do it, you have to be able to present to the government contracts that you have that basically will get up and say to you, prove that you have contracts to justify having these workers. Now, again, somebody could be doing something fraudulent, which again, the government has the ability to confirm if it's fraudulent. You can come to the job site. There's nothing that prevents it from happening. Come out to the job site, confirm that the work is going on to justify these 10 people that you're bringing in. Because let's understand, the abuse is real. There are people bringing individuals in, and I can assure you, they bring them in on temporaries. Some of them are just being sent out to work, and then they pay the person who has their permit, and they do that until the guy decides that he or she doesn't want them anymore, and then they go work somewhere else. But I can tell you where the abuse is going to happen. You're going to have these people coming from Jamaica, Honduras, India, wherever they're coming from, coming here looking for a legitimate opportunity. And when you now make it mandatory that they can't transfer from under Mr. So-and-so until a 2-year period of time, I am going to tell you that I think that they're going to be subject to abuse. In whatever way, shape, or form, they're going to be subject to abuse. And again, particularly those persons from, say, the Philippines, India, where it's long distance. You don't hop a flight and get there in half an hour. No, these are long distances. And at the end of the day, very expensive conveyance as well. I think those persons are going to be subject to abuse. And let's just even be realistic as you talk about minimum wage. You think that you're going to say it's going to be $8.75, but then these workers come. What happens when the employer tells them, I'm not paying you anything more than $6? What are you going to do? And you've already made it that they have to stay with this employer for 2 years. They're just going to keep their mouth shut. And I'll bet you they'll keep their mouth shut if it's even below $6. So with the greatest, again, of respect to the Minister Miles and the government, I would just ask you to reconsider this, because I don't think it's going to achieve what you want. I think it's going to subject a lot of those persons to even more abuse in terms of, salaries, and there's some other unsavory behavior as well, Mr. Harris, that I'm sure we all know probably occurs, but it's not going to make it any easier for them. I think particularly those workers are holding employment to which majority of Caymanians are not looking to hold. So I think that within reason, they should be allowed to be transferred. I think the solution to the problem is very simple. And it is the same solution for many of the problems that the Caymanians has. As my colleague and I have said many times in this program, there is no shortage of laws, arguably. There is a shortage of enforcement. Where is the enforcement? If you believe at the end of the day that companies specifically, and there are companies bringing people here, not paying them, subjecting them at the end of the day to all kind of behavior, making them pay the employer, then just get out there, do your job, investigate it so that you can go ahead and put the proper enforcement in place. I think I'm being signaled. We got just a couple of seconds left here up in the studio. So I just want to say those are my summary points in relation to the recent announcement coming from Minister Miles. We can touch on it more when we come back from the break, but keep it locked right here to Straight Talk Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world. Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News.
The world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he'll recognise Palestinian statehood unless Israel takes measures to end what he called the appalling situation in Gaza. The dramatic shift in policy comes a week after a similar announcement by France. Our State Department correspondent, Tom Bateman, says this will put pressure on Israel and Donald Trump.
What the European countries have done here is identify the lack or the vacuum of a strategic plan by the Trump administration for the long-term future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, other than to, in effect, back everything the Israelis or the Israeli government wants to do. So I think the Europeans have recognized that and said, basically, we're going to go ahead here with the idea of a two-state solution, even without the US, even without the Israelis on board.
Meanwhile, UN agencies say the international community needs to flood Gaza with aid immediately and keep it flowing every day after a global hunger monitor found famine was unfolding across the Palestinian territory. The report by the IPC highlights widespread starvation and malnutrition. The UN World Food Programme said conditions were akin to famines in Ethiopia and Nigeria last century. Jean-Martin Bauer is the WFP's Director of Food Security and Nutrition Assessments.
3 indicators that we look at include, number 1, household food deficits, number 2, global acute malnutrition, and number 3, mortality. For household food deficits, those have been above famine thresholds for a long time in many parts of Gaza. Today, we've got over 33% of the population that goes an entire day without having access to any food. For malnutrition, the levels of global acute malnutrition have quadrupled in Gaza City between May and July. So for 2 of the 3 indicators, we're above famine thresholds.
President Trump has said he'll impose heightened sanctions on Russia in 10 days' time unless it makes progress to end its war in Ukraine. He first announced he'd be shortening his deadline on Moscow during a visit to Scotland on Monday. The Trump administration has announced plans to revoke a key scientific finding that's long been the legal underpinning for US action to regulate greenhouse gas emissions and fight climate change. The Environmental Protection Agency chief, Lee Zeldin, said a 2009 declaration that determined carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases endanger public health will be repealed. Dr. Michael Mann is director of the University of Pennsylvania's Center for Science.
We have 2 decades of additional data that confirm that the planet is continuing to warm up as we predicted it would if we continued to add carbon pollution to the atmosphere. So the science, if anything, has gotten a whole lot stronger, but so has the denial of the science. And we're seeing that here in the form of this effort to strike down this very important precedent.
BBC News. A UN environment expert has told the BBC that new legislation in Brazil that aims to streamline major infrastructure developments will pave the way to more deforestation. Astrid Puentes Riaño says the law represents a major rollback of environmental protections that could harm the Amazon and indigenous communities. In Angola, there's been a second day of unrest as protests against rising fuel prices led to looting and vandalism. There are unconfirmed reports that 2 people have been killed in the violence. On Monday, at least 4 died and nearly 500 were arrested. Local media is reporting that dozens of people armed with knives and machetes stormed a market in the capital, Luanda. A German zoo has culled 12 baboons because of overcrowding, despite protests from animal rights activists. 7 protesters were arrested after breaking into the facility. Here's Jae Sung Lee.
The Nuremberg Zoo said the number of baboons in the enclosure had grown too big, leading to more conflicts like this. The zoo said it had run out of alternative options. Expanding the space wasn't feasible. The primates couldn't be released into the wild or be sent to other zoos, and contraception measures had failed to control their numbers. But rights groups say the move violated animal protection laws and have filed criminal complaints against the zoo. Its director has defended the decision, saying it was in line with a European law that stipulates that animals can be culled as a last resort to preserve their population.
A Salvador Dali painting that was picked up at a British house clearance sale for only $200 has been authenticated as an original. The piece by the Spanish surrealist could now fetch up to $40,000 at auction. The image, which was made with watercolour paint and felt tip, is an illustration of a scene from the Arabian Nights. It was bought by an anonymous art dealer. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM with your host, Austin Harris, and myself, Ellio Solomon. Time here up in the studio, 5:06, going all the way up until 6:30. I want to take this opportunity to remind the public that tomorrow we should be having an awesome program. We're going to be chatting with the candidate who ran in West and West Bay South, none other than Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. And of course, he was the host on Radio Cayman Talk Today program. A good favorite for many persons, but I believe the number is around 17 years. And of course, that individual now was unsuccessful in the last campaign. And we're having the candidates forum here. I think the first time ever in the history of this country has this been done. As my colleague proudly always says, you heard it here first. And in this particular case, we've done it first, and that is paying some respect for the fallen soldiers out there, for those persons who took the risk to offer themselves up for us, right? Up for us.
Yes.
And they get paid, but you get paid for your job too. That doesn't mean you're not taking sacrifices. And at the end of the day, they did it for us and they were unsuccessful. And I think we have an obligation, one, to learn a little bit more about them, learn about their story, and see what we can do to seamlessly, as much as possible, allow them to be able to reposition themselves, retransition themselves into the private sector. And you see, again, this is all of the things that bothers me. There's no shortage of empathy and sympathy for every manner of evil in the world. But when it comes to our own, it's always something that's missing, Mr. Harris.
Well, I thought about this earlier on today and your discussion yesterday. And, this whole notion that politically exposed persons, or PEP, which politicians, either successful or unsuccessful, oftentimes face, particularly those who are unsuccessful, when they try to reintegrate back into society, in particular into the jobs market. And this notion that seems to be commonly held by employers that, well, if I hire this person, and you'll forgive the adage, but they'll go down into the engine room of the company and start, mashing up the engine. They'll be drilling holes in the boat, basically working somehow against the company. Heaven forbid should they have or should they find themselves at odds with management. I can't think of anything more ridiculous than that concept. Here are individuals, professionals, persons of arguably the highest integrity and honesty, putting themselves forward to be a public servant, to run for public office. Now, somehow people seem to think there's a difference between those who win and those who lose, but they're the same people. They're the same ones who say, you know what, I want to put my country before my own self. Anyone who's ever considered going into politics has to appreciate that, there are accolades to be won, but make no mistake about it. You're putting yourself out there for criticism and punishment, and that's exactly what you get. It's they say there's, you can't please everyone, and arguably, no matter what you do, someone is going to be disappointed or critical of the decisions you make. Yet, time and time again, we have stronger and stronger number of Caymanians putting themselves forward, saying, yes, I accept the risks, but I believe I have something to offer. And kudos for them. But then to see those persons who are unsuccessful, previously gainfully employed, many of them of high caliber, held in high regard, but it's as if something was in the air, kind of like another pandemic that affects only those persons who, formerly ran for office. Now they are don't touch material. And it is ridiculous.
Yeah, and let me just harp on this, because again, this is something that I think both Harris and I can speak to extensively, of course, minus his throat issue today. The reality is, and I'm going to mention again the minimum wage issue just to prove a point. And again, please understand, I'm not harassing any nationality that's here, but you would heard the minister, for example, and ministers that would talk in a very empathetic way to express why we need to do this minimum wage. They say it with care, as we have to be our brother's keeper. We have to care about these persons. When have you ever heard in the history of the Cayman Islands, as long as you've been here, we've been here at least since our discovery in 1503, but when have you heard them ever say publicly, ladies and gentlemen, on the private sector, we've had these persons who have run, they've put themselves up for office, they've taken a tremendous risk, please employ them. Please find them and give them an opportunity to retransition themselves. When have you ever heard that?
No one's ever said it except right here.
You have not heard that. and you're hearing it now again from my colleague, you're hearing it here first.
Yes.
And
it is long overdue. I also
and it's deliberate.
Thought about that today as well. So you know what? I'm going to give you credit. Until Ellio first lofted up the idea just yesterday, and you did so with such passion, such honesty, such, you were so genuine in your remarks. It ceased to be about the criticism, which I know is not intentional, but he does make it easy. It ceased to be about criticism of the actions of the Honorable Michael Miles and more about doing it because it is the right thing. And I applaud you for doing so, and certainly for those persons who, again, they failed to pass muster to be elected into, public office, but they're no lesser of human beings. Yeah. In fact, to the contrary, these are the people that you want in your companies, in your firms. These are the people with the integrity and the honesty and the character that should be working for you.
Correct. And I want to show you that this is not by chance. This is something deliberate. And you might say, Ellio, how can you say that this is deliberate? Let me prove to you that it's deliberate. You would have seen that just recently, as I understand it from the Premier's office, that they would have hired 3. He has now 3 assistants. And those 3 assistants would have been the fallen soldiers, if you like, from his party. Well, actually, I think one of them is outside, friendly, but 2, sorry. I recant that statement. 2 of the fallen soldiers from his party. Is there anything really wrong? One could argue to say, I ran with these people. They took a risk. They supported me. And whatever I can do within reason and legality, I'm going to see that they get employment. I don't think there's something wrong with that. Now, do I think you need 2 assistants? I could have my complaints, but the concept of saying, come on, these 2 persons put their life on the line, put their jobs on the line, and I'm going to make sure that I look after them. Can I argue with it? Absolutely not. What I can argue about is the life, the blood, the sacrifice goes beyond the persons who ran with you. It also goes for the persons who ran in CINP. And it also goes for the independent candidates who ran. It goes for everyone who ran. The opposition, the PPM, the progressives. It goes for everyone. And I'm saying to you that it is deliberate, the fact that you do not hear any member of parliament, in this particular case talking about the government who can do something, saying, because it would make a big difference. Because I'll tell you the real reason, in my humble opinion, why these companies don't necessarily want to pick up these persons who have lost. The same way those members of parliament, particularly the government, doesn't make those statements, they're not making the statements because one of the things that I revealed here on the program was the fact that we understand that there is a silent, a tacit agreement going on that no person who ran against any one of those persons sitting in that composition now forming the government will have a chance to serve on the boards. And I can tell you, that's not happening today. That's been happening a long time ago. The reason I can talk about it today is we have different laws today that, if properly enforced, that kind of nonsense shouldn't be going on. But just how you see that victimization taking place, because let's be clear, when you are deliberately going out of your way to deny someone the opportunity to be employed on a government board, which you have all power to do, all power to recognize that the person has something to contribute, they want to contribute, and you could put them there, but you deliberately deny them, it's called victimization. And so the same way they're going to protect their own colleagues, then you have to ask yourself, well, what about the CINP members? And I don't even know why there's not even a complaint coming from CINP, but maybe there's some friction going on in there. Who knows? But what happened to the CINP members, right? And so these things are deliberate. I know for a fact, working where you have had government members that will come to the companies where you are employed, and you see they do it in a very subtle way. And this is where I talked about the fundamental reason, in my humble opinion, why companies don't do this is because they know, expressed or not, that there is that victimization element that comes from every government that gets elected. And they know that they risk not getting their contracts with the government, their permits with the government, and the list goes on. If they hire Harris, if they hire Ellio, if they hire Don, or they hire someone else who lost. That is why, in my humble opinion, that's the fundamental reason why they're doing it. And if they're not doing it, then I'm going to say the same love and care and empathy that you show for every foreign national that comes here, that you say they need a minimum wage, then show the same love and compassion and just make the same express statement, Mr. Premier. Make it and say that the government wants to know, the public to know, allow these persons to transition back into society, give them some employment. But you're not going to hear that because that is not really the case. Because what is most important to the majority of people who get elected is keeping their seat. Keeping that cushy job is most important, even if it means keeping their own brothers down. And I can tell you, as I've said before, this anti-brotherhood there is the devil's philosophy. God's philosophy is about being your brother's keeper, right? And this is where I want even the foreign nationals who might probably listen to me and hear me arguing about the minimum wage. I know on the surface, some of you might say, yes, there's truth in what he's saying. And at the end of the day, some might just simply say, well, I feel a sting coming from that because where is my minimum wage? It will help me in one way, shape, or another. I want you to see at the same time the hypocritical actions when you are now going to be denied that you don't have the opportunity even to transfer and to be able to better your life, which is the real reason you came here in the first place, is to better your life. So I'm going to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, as a person who I don't necessarily think I have to enter into all the examples, but I can assure you, I'm not telling you something that I read. I'm telling you something that I have experienced, where persons go out of their way to deliberately make sure that you cannot work, that you cannot eat. Why do you think I am the way I am right now in terms of whether it's construction? I have learned to survive because that is the level of victimization that you have in this country. So, Mr. Premier, I am happy for the two fallen soldiers that work with you, that campaign with you, and the fact that you have looked out for them. Hats off to you for that. But I have no hats off for you or any member of the government who is not even able to say a kind word on behalf of those who even campaigned against you. Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't something personal. It was everybody competing to try to have a chance to serve the general public. So, ladies and gentlemen, I really want you to take those words seriously and understand that when you don't hear those words coming, and we're throwing the challenge out. We're throwing the challenge out for Minister Miles and his government to keep the commitment that they made, that they were going to provide persons coming to this country with the opportunity, not people coming to the country, Caymanians returning, to provide them not just with the jobs that they need, but with the jobs that they want. We're challenging them to do that same thing for these fallen soldiers, if you like, who offered themselves up, made the sacrifices in the last campaign. Let's get them some employment. Also challenging them to, at the minimum, the same way they speak with loving words, kindness, and empathetic for our national and international brothers in terms of our need to offer the minimum wage because we can't allow certain behaviors and certain things to exist. Then speak with the same love and care and let the public know, let the employers know out there in the private sector that there will be no victimization, and to provide employment for those persons who were unsuccessful in the last election. I throw that challenge out, and I look forward to hearing those words come from the Premier. And I will say, by the way, I've said good things about the Premier, and let me just say one or two of those right here now. First of all, I know his father. His father's a good person. As far as I know, I have no qualms with the gentleman. I have a lot of respect for him. Did an interview with him, Austin, on the Vision show that we had. Good individuals. Also served with him on the Turtle Center. And where I don't know his son as personal, I would like to believe that the chip doesn't fall too far from the block. I remember having some conversations with him during the campaign on, in relation to ACT with respect to the Cruz Bears. I think he's an intelligent man, and I'd like to believe that somewhere in there, again, even though I don't know him personally, he doesn't fall far from the block and wants to do the right thing. As I've stated, I generally speaking do not believe that anyone that gets elected in Parliament does so with some intention to destroy the country. But there's a lot of little factors that come in that you can do so, even though you did not intend to do so, it can happen. And if you let the pride and the concern about selfishness, that all I'm concerned about is my seat, then you can do evil as a result of that as well. So I'm going to say, I say all that to challenge the premier, to show me that he's a chip that hasn't fallen too far from the block, and to do the right thing. And for all those persons who, for all of our Caymanians who are unemployed, but I want to speak specifically for those who at this point in time took the risk, left their jobs, left their good employment. They know they were feeding their families where they were, but they went, one, to be able to serve the country because it's something that they're passionate about doing. And even if it was a matter that they also saw, in addition to that, other employment opportunities as well, give them a chance to be able to retransition themselves into society. So, Mr. Harris, any comments you want to make about it? How much time do we have left? I'm getting a text. You sent me something. Hold on a second here. I see a text here. Thanks for exposing this dark practice in our political landscape, gentlemen, Ellio and Austin. So am I hearing you correctly? This coalition government, a mix of at least 3 political groupings, is adopting a secret practice of blackballing those who ran against them in the last election. What about its constituencies where some or all of them ran against each other in the April 2025 elections? This is such an obsolete idea and backward thinking. Yes, I am saying that. I mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again, that as far as I'm aware, we have been reliably informed, and it's one of those things that nobody's going to come out and tell you. And I'm pretty sure all of you listening to me can understand that. You know, we have certain discussions that, you know, we don't let everybody know. What I was saying, and not everything good to eat, good to talk. So the understanding is from reliable sources. And when I say reliable, I am talking reliable, that the government has agreed, as in 11 members at least, or at least the majority of them have agreed that persons who campaigned against them specifically would not be allowed to serve on boards, etc. We do not know it as a fact, but we are reliably informed. And simply, I look forward to being shown that the information was incorrect. And how can we do that? We can be proven to be incorrect when the government gets up. And just like how the TCCP has put 2 of their fallen soldiers in the government in a very good job, and we're happy about that, when we see them do the same thing for all of the other candidates that ran in the last election, if it's at the minimum a board seat, then we will be proven, and we happily will be proven, that we were incorrect in terms of this tacit agreement that was made. But let's mark it, ladies and gentlemen, in our Bible, in the parchment paper, as they say, that if you don't see any of these persons placed on boards or given an opportunity in the government in one way, shape, or another to serve, then I hope that everybody will accept that as conclusive evidence that the tacit agreement did in fact exist. And it just shows you that despite the fact that you want to sound empathetic and caring, most importantly to your own brother, to your own brothers, as that caller mentioned yesterday, Mr. Harris, who talked about Caymanians and our downfall being that here we are living in a 5-bedroom house and can't take care of our brother who has nothing. Well, that's the same thing right now. We got some parliamentarians living in the big house and making a big salary, $300,000, but you can't look up for the guy at the end of the day who's not making perhaps a single dollar. Very, very sad. How much time do we have, Mr. Harris? 5:26 here up in the studio. If you want to call, the number to call is 745-2626, 745-2626, or of course you can give us a text on 928-2562. And again, lots of other things I want to be able to discuss. Happy to continue doing so. But in case you just wanted to call and, disturb me here in the studio with Austin and I, then feel free to do so. Again, the number is 745-2626, or you can send us a WhatsApp text or voice message to 928-2562. And again, if there's any particular topic that you want to discuss, sorry, what are you saying?
Give me the mouse.
Oh, there you go. Give me the mouse. Say that loud. Got his monitor and don't have his mouse. But ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything that's on your mind, particularly you want to discuss, then feel free to do so. If not, I will continue my discussions in relation to this particular issue and one or two other that I think I have here on my phone that at least we can broach on it between now and 6:30. 5:27 here in the studio with your two favorite hosts, Austin Harris and myself, Ellio Solomon. And how many seconds do we have, Mr. Harris? Or we got a minute? Minute to win it. 2 minutes. All right, 2 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, here up into the studio. Let me just go really quickly and start talking and saying, I got a discussion that I started the other day about the banks, and that was in relation to someone simply saying something to the effect that they were, had money in the bank, and the bank were simply able to take that money from them without their permission and use it in order to pay off an overdraft.
If I could just interrupt you
that's
briefly. We did, in fact, receive one WhatsApp audio note.
Okay.
But the message itself is 2 minutes and 54 seconds.
We'll do
longer
come back.
than the time we have available. I just want to say to that listener and now contributor, we haven't forgotten you. Just looking at the time, we don't have the time to take your full comments before we're forced to take a break. But we will pick up those comments in about a minute and a half or so after the next break.
Alrighty. How much time you have, Mr. Harris? And by the way, when people hear me saying that, I have to keep saying it because this timer in the studio will just cut you off.
5 seconds.
And I don't have access to it. See you when we come back from the break.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
Looking for TVs, electronics, sound systems, speakers, gaming consoles, games, and smart home gadgets? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for housewares, small appliances, fans, mini fridges, and cooling? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for baby supplies, toys and games, pet supplies, cleaning supplies, and auto supplies? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for quality produce, grass-fed meats, and groceries? You guessed it. Shop Cost You Less.
Cost You Less is your destination for everything you need on island. Cost You Less. Everyday low prices on items that matter to you.
We all work hard to one day buy the house of our dreams. Why wouldn't you protect it? With Saxon, you now have the option to get a home insurance quote online. Avoid the waiting in lines and the traffic. Simply log on to saxon.ky and click to get a quote to get started. At Saxon, we pride ourselves on providing our customers with excellent customer service and convenience. So what are you waiting for? Visit saxon.ky today from the comfort of your home or office to get your quote and protect the things you love. Saxon. Smart Insurance.
The Office Hero. To claim this title, you have to make an exceedingly wise decision. Do something that benefits staff, impresses clients, all while keeping expenses low. Are you ready to be the Office Hero? Here's what to do. Call Hughes Cleaning Service. Hughes Cleaning Service will make your office shine and you a hero. Dusting, vacuuming, windows, sanitizing, and more. Hughes expert cleaners will make your office a healthy, immaculate, impressive workspace. Call 949-0734. Visit hughes-janitorial.com. Hughes, you get more than clean.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately. And
that's fine. We know you love it.
We just don't understand how you can afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu starting at just $3. Gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shetton Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value meals. The deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
At Polar Bear Air Conditioning, we believe in helping you to avoid costly mistakes and replacements. That's why we offer a quarterly maintenance program at a discounted price. You'll receive a 10% discount on all repairs, accessories, and services. Priority front-of-the-line customer status, reminders of your service, and no overtime rate for after-hours calls. Why not save money and avoid hassle with Polar Bear Air Conditioning? Need service now? Book our AC special for just $99. Book the next available technician at polarbear.ky. That's polarbear.ky.
Visit Healthcare Pharmacy's second location in Governor Square, servicing West Bay and the 7 Mile Beach Corridor with the care and professionalism you have come to expect from Healthcare Pharmacy. Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor Square also stocks a huge selection of Hallmark and shoebox greeting cards, vitamins, sunblock, last minute, and everyday needs. To refill and transfer your prescriptions, simply WhatsApp 329-7313 or visit healthcarepharmacy.ky or drop by Monday to Saturday from 9 till 6.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your two talk show hosts, favorite ones, of course, Austin Harrison, myself, Ellio Solomon. Time here up into the studio is 5:33. And again, if you'd like to join the conversation or take us in a particular direction, the number to call is 745-2626. Again, that's 745-2626. Or you can send us a text. WhatsApp, that is 928-2562. That's 928-2562. And again, that can either be a text or a voice message. Just prior to the break, my colleague was telling us that we did receive a text. It was 2 minutes long. We couldn't play it then, but I think we can do that now.
Good evening, Austin and Ellio. First of all, Austin, I hope you can recover your operatic voice as soon as possible. In fact, talking about voices, the two of you have got such good voices, you might think about a segment on your show when you can sing a duet, bring some instrument there, just for a little bit, you know. I'm just tempting you, maybe you might want to think about that. But more seriously, Ellio, I just joined you, I think, when you were talking about people changing jobs when they come to the Cayman Islands. Now, I'm not quite sure even whether that's the real thing you were addressing, but I do have a view on a matter related to that. I also do not agree that if somebody comes to Cayman, they should not be allowed to change jobs. First of all, to me, it smacks of a certain mentality that when people come in, they should be like indentured servants. You know, you can only work for this one and not the other person. You know, it's almost as if somebody comes to Cayman and they marry one Caymanian wife. If they divorce that one, you say, well, you can't marry another one. You can only marry one. You know, I mean, I'm trying to be serious here, but I just don't think that that's right. Because remember also that when that person leaves that job to go to the new job, they won't just leave without approvals. They will have to get a work permit, and somebody has to be satisfied that they are needed in the other job. Okay, so when you put in everything, and also you might want to consider that person, say if they've been in Cayman for 2 to 3 years, they have acquired Caymanian experience in that job, and why would you want them first to leave and then come back later on if they have to change a job? I just think that is not right. It is not fair, and it reminds us of how in the past people were enslaved and indentured. Talking about the whole immigration issue, by the way, I don't believe that if the government does not put a cap on the status grants, I do not believe that they will achieve what they want to achieve. And I'm starting to get the impression that the government does not really want to solve this problem. I'm even thinking that maybe privately there might be some politicians who are saying, look, we don't want to become unpopular over this. We will just do a few little things here and there. After all, we are already a minority in our country. We've already been defeated. Why do we want to do something drastic? After all, it might not work. I'm really starting to wonder whether there is seriousness about immigration reform. But that's my view. I hope you can give it some thought and let me know what you think as well. Thank you.
Yeah, without a doubt. 5:36 here in the studio. I want to thank the author of that particular voice message. And I agree. I think that the situation in terms of saying to someone that you're denying people the opportunity, I think that's always a real issue. And again, I want to put at the fore what the government is saying on relation to this item. The government is saying that they're doing all of these things to protect Caymanians. I made an argument the other day, and I'll try making it again, that what I'm seeing recently is politics of emotions, is what I'm calling it. And it is a lot of things that sounds good. It feels good. It sounds good to say it. And you're trying to get Caymanians to feel placated, like something is happening. And I want to encourage Caymanians to get past this as well, because it's very easy to fall into the trap of feeling like you're making progress when you hear that the other guy is not. Okay? I know that sounds overly simplistic, but it is a fact. You ever sit in one of those parking lots sometime, you're just both there, you're parked, your car is not even running, and all of a sudden the car next to you moves, and you're jamming on your brakes even though your car isn't on because they're moving out made you feel like you were going backwards? Well, you're not really going backwards. It's an illusion. And in the same way you get those sort of feelings when it's an illusion, it's the same situation I'm talking about. No, you have an illusion when you can have a politician make you see him beating somebody with a proverbial stick or a legal stick, and somehow you feel that this person being punished is going to somehow change your situation. Okay? So the government can talk about, oh, they're going to do this to foreign nationals. I'm going to make sure at the end of the day that these individuals will not be able to transfer in 2 years. And if they do that, they get 6 months. But you know what? You're unemployed. You're still unemployed. You're not making enough money. You're still not making enough money. These are feel-good pieces of legislation. You're not really solving the problem. And like I said, you have to ask yourself fundamentally the question, there's 10,000 people that are going to benefit from minimum wage. Approximately 2,000 supposedly are Caymanians. 8,000 are going to be foreign nationals. Well, that 8,000 persons on the benefit of minimum wage are arguably some of the same people that this legislation that they're putting in place that says you can't transfer. And if you can't transfer within 2 years, and if you do, you have to go back home for 6 months. Those are some of the same people. So I don't really understand, as I've said earlier, how you're going to be saying I'm trying to help the guy by throwing him an additional $2.75 an hour. But somehow you're denying them the opportunity where if you didn't do anything, they could probably have transitioned to somebody who's paying another person or another helper even more and make even the same $2.75 or even more. But the difference is if they have an opportunity to transfer, they can get an increase, and it's not one that's increasing inflation by saying that you're making it $8.75 straight across the board. So I really don't know where they're coming up with all of this, but quite fundamentally what I see, and I've seen this on different pieces of legislation, again, whether it's marijuana, whether it's the no-wake zone, there's a myriad of them, that I understand what you're trying to achieve, or at least what you say you're trying to achieve. But I see it as a lot of feel-good pieces of legislation. And I mentioned this a few days ago. Maybe this might help stir a little bit of controversy. You know, right now we live in an age where we're not supposed to talk about God. We're not supposed to talk about the Bible. But let me just be clear about something. The Bible talks about the fact that the male is supposed to be head of the household and the female is supposed to be submissive and subject their person to the male. I know this is probably going to stir it up, but that's always good. Stir it up. Steer it up. And by the way, I want to agree with the author, right? We should be doing the singing. And I think, Austin, you said, look out for the Christmas album, right?
Look out for the Christmas album. It's going to be a banger.
It's going to be a banger. But let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. There is a matter that, as far as I'm concerned, and I think there's some authority somewhere, I read it somewhere, that male and female are actually meant to work together. That female energy, the male energy. And I mentioned this a couple of days or weeks ago. It is a matter, for example, if you look at a child and the child falls and skins his knee, the mother's natural reaction is to nurture that child, hold him, kiss it, and do all of those things. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. But if that's the only thing that happens to the child will never learn to overcome challenges. They'll never be able to be strong enough to move on without having someone kissing their knees. And I'm pretty sure you can carry this on into the future and know that I'm not just talking about skinning your knee. It needs a balance. It needs a balance where a male comes and say, okay, okay, how many times can I kiss the child? And the father saying, come on, get up. You see, this is a balance. And somewhere between this father who seems to be uncaring, which he really isn't uncaring. He's preparing him for the real world. Somewhere between the father who cares for the child in a different way than the mother does, the complement of those two things is what creates a well-structured individual when they grow up. And I'm going to suggest to you that if you have too much male energy and there's not a complement to that of some female energy, you're going to have an issue. And in the same way, if you have too much female energy and no complement of the male, you have another issue. And I'll probably be criticized for this one, but I think for some reason, I'm seeing a lot of feminine energy, if you like, coming out of our parliament. It seems now that you win the debate. You make laws based on who can make the most emotional argument, the one that can sound the most caring. And I can do that too, by the way. But it doesn't mean that it's carrying us towards any real solution in the world. And so I throw that out because I want to encourage you, have a look. If you think that you can have a look and you can say, Ellio, that's not what I observe, again, you're welcome to call 745-2626 or 928-2562. But what you're going to find is all of these emotional speeches, and they sound good and it feels good. But really, when you dig down deeper into it, the substance is missing. Fundamental for anyone who is coming to Cayman to work, and I can talk about the same thing on a local perspective for the Caymanians, but now I'm talking about the foreign national. We have in economics what we call the push and pull effect. So in a country, a person normally leaves their country to go somewhere else, either because the circumstances in that particular environment is pushing them out to find something different, something better. And or on the other hand, they might be comfortable where they are, but the pull effect from the other country is so strong. The opportunities is so great that they're willing to leave their comfortable position. They're willing to leave that comfort zone to go to the pulling effect. Now, I would dare say that normally what happens is the proverbial combination of both taking place. It's always a little bit of pushing, and there's also a little bit of pulling. But they're moving primarily because there's a better opportunity. You don't normally move when there's less opportunity. And again, like I just think to the caller's point again as well, or to the author point in terms of the voice message, it is at the minimum to say a serious disservice to be able to deny people the opportunity, one, to travel to your country and to benefit. And secondly, if they do come here, now you want to deny them the opportunity to be able to better themselves in the environment. But you, on the other hand, try to throw out all of these words that makes it sound like you're caring because we're going to give them an additional $2.75. It just really doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense because as far as I'm concerned, it's politics of emotions. Too much feminine energy up inside of there that they have pure emotions and it ain't making much sense. You need some male logic up inside there, see if we can try to balance some things out, because that to me is what works when you have a combination of both of them. Ladies and gentlemen, now 5:45 here in the studio. Going to transition a little bit again, just to touch on this banking issue, because what I want to say using this banking element is that, as my colleague and I have said on numerous occasions, Cayman has the laws. I want you to be clear. Cayman has a lot of laws, pieces of legislation. I can give you examples where I've even contacted the police and asked them if they knew of a particular provision in the penal code. Then they'll say, no, I didn't know that was there. And I say, yeah. And you can't possibly enforce it if you don't know it's there. This particular one that I'm referring to is actually one about actually dealing with payments of money. But bottom line of it is that the issue that was raised a few days ago was the fact that here's an individual that you have property, and your property is the $10,000 that you have in your bank account. It's in a separate bank account. Even in business, we have it that a company is a proper legal entity. In other words, if I have a company, I am not the company and the company is not me. The company is its own legal identity, its own person. So here's an individual who has a certain amount of money in his bank account, let's say $10,000. And now the person owes an overdraft. Regardless of what the overdraft is, make the overdraft $2,500. And the bank, without your permission, just goes ahead. And I know, let me insert really quickly, somebody will probably throw out, of which I can't prove or disprove, that somewhere along the line in the 150-page document that you sign, there's a little provision there that you authorize him to do it. I don't know. And even if that's the case, sounds like a bit like an unfair contract to me. But either way, you have an overdraft, and that overdraft is $2,500. But yet you have $10,000 in your savings. The individual now is making plans, you see, because they have a child overseas, and they have to be able to send money for them every month. And you go now to draw your funds, only to discover that the bank has, without your permission and without your knowledge, removed the one crutch that you needed to stand on to support yourself and your family, and has paid off, particularly an overdraft. And I gave the example, and I said, do you think that would happen if it was my good friend, Mr. Harris, with his $52 million in the bank, and that he owed a mortgage of $150,000? I think that's the same, relatively, that's the same thing as the overdraft. Are they going to just take the $150,000 from his $52 million and just pay off his mortgage? No. And in fact, I'll go even less. He's allowed it to go into arrears, so he now owes $6,000. I'll bet you they wouldn't withdraw $6,000 from his $52 million to pay that $6,000 unless Harris gave them permission. Why? Because you haven't respect for the person who has, and you have no respect for the person who has not. And I'm saying to you that all of these things are the things the financial institution, for example, are doing, that they're allowed to get away with simply because there's nobody to challenge them. No one to challenge them. They totally go unchallenged, and no one can tell me that I'm the only one that knows that. We have Caymanians right now that are being removed on the front line from banks because at the end of the day, we're being shaped and carried in the direction of a cashless society. There's many ways to be able to prove that. And no one, again, is challenging them. And so I'm going to ask you, when the minister and ministers are supporting things like a minimum wage, why are they not getting up and dealing with the banks? And it's to the author's point when he sends the voice message. They're not really dealing with the real issues. They don't want to deal with the real issues. I think the author says that it seems like we've capitulated already. We've already accepted defeat. Well, whether you want to say that we've accepted defeat or not, it is a matter that they are reluctant to deal with it. And I think you need to just render them, brand them as just exactly what it is, having no cojones to be able to deal with it. They don't want to do that. They want to give you nice feminine speeches and make you feel empathetic, make you feel like they care. But at the end of the day, the actions prove otherwise. There was a particular provision in the labor law. I don't remember what it is. I know my good cuz would probably remember, as one who hated up labor at one point. But there's a particular area there on the provision of discrimination. I think it might have been Section 80. Again, I will ask you, how many times have you seen a particular officer go into a company and utilizing Section 80, I think it deals with discrimination, to say, why is it, for example, that this particular individual was making $120,000, he was from Canada or he was from the United States, and as soon as the Caymanian gets the job, they're only making $75,000. Why is that? Why is there no one there to ask them? Seems like a bit of discrimination, and actually find the company. I just don't think you have the will that's there. On one hand, it might be persons who don't know, but I think in large part, to the author's point on the voice message, I really don't think that they have the will to do it. Mr. Harris, I want this. What's that?
No, you call my name. I thought you wanted me to jump in there.
Yeah, I want to hear what your comment is. I know your throat is sore, but I like the dialogue.
No, I know you do, and I feel bad that I'm not contributing.
Oh, okay.
I should, but I am trying to save it for tomorrow.
Save it for starting.
Horrible.
Okay, I got you. I just want to mention one of my favorite arguments, of course, is Cruz, and I just pulled up some information here. I haven't read through it, so I have no idea what I'm actually going to deliver.
Actually, when they say we share a brain, I literally, that's what
you pulled up too.
I have an excellent story on cruise tourism.
Give it to me.
Well, no, I'm going to give it to you.
Give it to me.
In about 8 minutes when we're on the break, and I'm going to suggest you read it to the general audience because it is a powerful story on the subject of cruise and what is happening in cruise in 2025. I'm on the site travelandtourworld.com. And again, just give you a snippet of what the article says. How Mexico unifies with U.S., Japan, Spain, Italy, Greece in super boosting cruise tourism and earning more revenue to the travel industry while strengthening their own respective economies. It's a fascinating article, and I knew it's right up your alley, so maybe when we come back from the top of the hour news, you and I will have had a chance to discuss it, and then if you think it is worthwhile, then maybe you will choose to share it with the listening audience.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that. And again, I know that I had some persons even on my Facebook page trying to, tease me out or troll me, I think is what they call it. One of those things, where, for example, they'll try to suggest, well, Ellio, you're just making these comments because, you lost the cruise referendum. I don't know what people think when they try to suggest that Ellio Solomon lost the cruise referendum. I didn't lose the marijuana referendum. I didn't lose the lottery referendum, and I didn't lose the cruise referendum. One thing you're going to have from me, and you can go and search my record, and if you find it different, then please call the talk show in the spirit of transparency. Call the talk show and show me. 745-2626, 928-2562. I am going to speak honestly about a situation in the way that I see it, and I will always align it with whatever I believe is in the best interest of the Caymanian people. So as my colleague will say, I have a lot of friends, a lot of Filipino nationals that are my friends, Jamaicans that are my friends, Hondurans, and every other nationality. Love them all. And I want to see everybody do well. I love the fact that we have a country here with so many different nationalities. I believe we can learn from all of them. For example, love the Filipinos, particularly those who are getting us in more into the vegetable eating, because I think we need a little bit more of that. There's a myriad of different things that we can learn from them, and I encourage us to learn from them. But I'm going to always speak in terms of what is in the best interest of the Caymanian people. When I campaign for cruise tourism, I campaign for cruise tourism because I believe it is absolutely essential that we have cruise. Hear that? Not even a supplementary. It is absolutely essential. I think it's fundamental. It's foundational in the sense that if we don't have cruise, I think it's going to impact tremendously what we have in terms of stayovers. And I think the time will tell that. And if I'm wrong, happy to be wrong. But at the end of the day, let's make sure and get it clear that at the end of the day, Ellio Solomon himself is not going to lose because you don't support cruise. It's the country that's going to lose, and that's what's important. But I was going through all of these statistics, and what's the time check, Mr. Harris? Can't see the clock.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So, again, I don't even know what these numbers are going to bring me. My colleague says he has the same mind, and he was pulling up something as well. But 2025 cruise passenger arrivals from January through May 2025, 589,783 cruise passengers arrived, which was a 2% increase over the same period in 2024. However, May alone saw just 53,076 cruise visitors, making a 37% drop from April and a 15% decline year over year. Month by month trends. And again, April 2025, 83,933 cruise arrivals, down 26.6 year on year. And again, early 2025, quarter one, first quarter and second quarter, saw a strong start. Cruise arrivals were up 15.2% for February and 22% growth compared to February 2024. And I know, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll just close with this on that particular topic, that when I was in office, we were doing quite a few things. And I know that there's some people in our country that just seems to just so blindly follow anything that they think that the UK desires because they believe that the UK means us absolutely well. And as a person who had the opportunity to serve in office and actually chat to some of those persons, I take a slightly different view. But, there's no greater discovery than what a person discovers for themselves. And hopefully at some point in time, everyone will be able to discover that not everything that glitters is gold and not everything that they say is meant for something good. While we were there voting out crews, there was an article that appeared right afterwards. I think it was a day after the vote, where it talked about the UK embracing crews. And let's be clear, a lot of these non-governmental organizations are the same persons, are the same groups that were housing some of these persons and spawning them, if you like, in terms of those who has created this, in part, some of this anti-cruise rhetoric that you're actually taking place. I remember, for example, years ago, again, this was one of the other things that I was beat up so badly about, the issue with the Chinese. When the UK was telling us not to deal with the Chinese, the UK was embracing them full on, giving them a red carpet, wanting to do business with them left, right, and center. Because at the end of the day, what is good for the goose isn't always good for the gander, according to them. But there's something called the Five Eyes in terms of security. It's a series of countries, Australia, UK, the United States, and amongst other things, they're to look out for each other from a security standpoint. And maybe one of these days we can have a discussion on that. But that is in part why a lot of things is happening where we now have that signed up as this Blue Belt Environmental Agreement, why they don't want you to do business with certain individuals. It's for all of those reasons. Time check, Mr. Harris, 30 seconds. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to just pause and take a very quick break. But again, when we come back, the discussion continues. Only got a half an hour. If there's anything you'd like to add, comments, raise your own topic, whatever it is, we welcome you to give us a call or a shout here in the studio. Again, the number to call if you'd like is 745-2626, 745-2626 or 928-2562. Keep it locked right here to Straight Talk.
Bobo.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News. World news from the BBC.
Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said plans by Britain to recognise Palestinian statehood unless Israel reaches a Gaza ceasefire before September would be a reward for Hamas. Mr Netanyahu said the announcement, which marks a major foreign policy change for Britain, would mean the appeasement of jihadists. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, has more.
It is a symbolic move, but that symbolism, that affirmation of the Palestinians' decades-long aspiration for statehood has been strengthened. It will also be welcomed by Arab leaders who, from the beginning of the Gazan war, have said the only way to really fight and destroy Hamas is not militarily, but by offering an alternative to Palestinians, by offering them the state that they long believed that they deserve, but how so many had started to believe was simply not possible.
Meanwhile, UN agencies say the international community needs to flood Gaza with aid immediately and keep it flowing every day after a global hunger monitor found famine was unfolding across the Palestinian territory. Professor Nick Maynard, a surgeon who's been working in Gaza with medical aid for Palestinians, describes some of the conditions he's faced.
Feeding them the wrong food can be very dangerous and can lead to them getting even sicker. So the newborns, the infants, need a particular type of formula. We had none of that. None of it was being allowed into Gaza by the Israeli authorities. Formula feed was confiscated from doctors' luggage at the border by Israeli border guards.
President Trump has said he'll impose heightened sanctions on Russia in 10 days' time unless it makes progress to end its war in Ukraine. Peter Bowes has more.
2 weeks ago, Donald Trump gave his Russian counterpart 50 days to agree a ceasefire or peace deal in Ukraine or face severe tariffs. Apparently frustrated by a lack of response from Mr. Putin, on Monday, the US president shortened the deadline to just 10 to 12 days. But his latest comments suggest he's set a firm date for the end of next week. Mr. Trump said it was a shame he hadn't heard from the Russian president and appeared to play down the possible impact of any ultimatum to put pressure on Russia. He said Mr. Putin obviously wanted to keep the war going.
Peter Bowes reporting. The Trump administration has announced plans to revoke a key scientific finding that's long been the legal underpinning for US action to regulate greenhouse gas emissions and fight climate change. The Environmental Protection Agency chief, Lee Zeldin, said a 2009 declaration that determined carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases endanger public health will be repealed, calling it the largest deregulatory action in the history of America. BBC News. Taiwan's foreign ministry has denied reports that President Trump had blocked the island's leader from stopping off in the US as part of an official visit to Latin America. The ministry's spokesman said President Lai Ching-te had no immediate plans to travel abroad due to disaster recovery efforts following a typhoon. Mr. Lai's stopover would have angered China, which considers Taiwan its own territory. A UN environmental expert has told the BBC that new legislation in Brazil that aims to streamline major infrastructure developments will pave the way to more deforestation. Ione Wells has the details.
Major developments such as new highways, dams or energy infrastructure need environmental licenses in Brazil to show they won't cause unacceptable harm to the environment. This can take a long time. The legislation aims to streamline the process. One of the UN's appointed experts on the environment, Astrid Puentes Riaño, told me it would represent a huge rollback in environmental protections. In particular, she's concerned that under the new law, smaller projects could self-declare their environmental impact, and some projects could automatically have licenses renewed. She said in the cases of mines, for example, this could harm the Amazon, indigenous communities, and lead to deforestation.
In Angola, there's been a second day of unrest as protests against rising fuel prices led to looting and vandalism. There are unconfirmed reports that 2 people have been killed in the violence. On Monday, at least 4 died and nearly 500 were arrested. Local media is reporting that dozens of people armed with knives and machetes stormed a market in the capital, Luanda. A Salvador Dali painting that was picked up at a British house clearance sale for only $200 has been authenticated as an original. The piece, by the Spanish surrealist, could now fetch up to $40,000 at auction. That's the latest world news from the BBC.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your hosts, Austin Harris and myself, Ellio Solomon. The time here up in the studio is 6:06, and the number to call if you'd like to join in the conversation or point us in some specific direction is 745-2626. That's 745-2626. And of course, 928-2562 if you want to go ahead and send a text. Again, what is this here? Both the U.S. and Brazil are pulling back extreme environmental legislation. I'll have to check that out, my friend. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, my colleague did hand me this particular article in relation to cruise tourism. I think his words were a little bit lengthy, but nevertheless, it should be informative. And I just want to go ahead and just give you two announcements before I get into this discussion. Again, remind persons if they're interested in having something for their kids, their children to do. I used to work with a guy that said, I hate when you call kids. That's for goats, which I can agree. It's for goats, but it's still an affectionate word. FC International, ladies and gentlemen, established from 1993, is hosting a football camp. And again, it's free. It's free. The magic free word. It's again 1 week long, August 11th to the 15th, 2025. August 11th to the 15th, starting at 9 until 1 p.m. for boys and girls, ages 4 to 16. Lunch will be provided for them. T-shirts provided on the last day of the camp. And again, the location is going to be at Mary Martin Primary School in Georgetown. Registration, first day of the camp. All participants must be registered. If you're interested in this, the number to call is 323-1993. That's 323-1993. So again, I want to encourage persons, if you're interested, join up and see if you can have your kids doing something healthy for the summer. Both the U.S. and Brazil are pulling back on extreme environmental legislation. BBC News, got to see if I can check it out. Mr. Harris, let me see if I can find this BBC News here. And then BBC News. But I want to just read this article at the same time while I try to do multitasking and search for that particular article. How Mexico unifies with the U.S., Japan, Spain, Italy, and Greece in super boosting cruise tourism and earning more revenue to the travel industry while boosting their own local economies. Mexico unifies with the U.S., Japan, Spain, Italy, and Greece in super boosting cruise tourism and tops the chart in boosting cruise travel and tourism industry. These countries are working hard to attract more cruise travelers, not Cayman. Together, they are helping the global travel industry earn more revenue. This powerful unity is changing the face of cruise travel in 2025. Each of these nations share a goal. They want to grow their cruise markets and bring more money into the travel industry. By working together, they offer cruise lines better port access, smoother services, and exciting new destinations. The results speak for themselves. Cruise bookings are rising, port calls are increasing, tourist spending is reaching new highs. As this new report shows, Mexico, the U.S., Japan, Spain, Italy, and Greece are not just leading separately, they are moving forward together. They are building new cruise terminals, improving tourism programs, and sharing strategies. This teamwork helps everyone earn more revenue. It also creates better travel experiences for millions of people. In 2025, the super boost in cruise tourism is no accident. It's a result of smart planning, strong partnership, and shared visions. And Mexico stands united with global leaders in steering this success. Cruise tourism in Mexico saw an impressive upswing between January and June of 2025. More than 1,639 cruise ships arrived, which is a 7.8% increase from the same time last year. These numbers reflect strong demand and growing interest in Mexico's coastal experiences. The Caribbean side of Mexico continues to dominate in cruise traffic. Cozumel, Mahahual, I almost thought that was Tagalog, say Mahalco. Both in Quintana Roo recorded the highest number of arrivals. Cozumel welcomed 685 cruise ships and 2.4 million passengers in 6 months. Mahahual, another Caribbean hotspot, saw 302 ships and brought in 1.2 million travelers. These two ports alone accounted for over half of the nation's total cruise visitors. The rise in cruise traffic didn't happen by chance. Mexico's government is actively supporting the cruise sector through new investments and national planning. According to the Tourism Secretary, Josefina Rodriguez Zamora, modernizing the national port system is a key goal. What is that? Should I say it again? Modernizing the national port system is a key goal, not for Cayman. The aim is to make ports safer, more efficient, and better equipped. Did I say that again? The aim is to make the ports safer, more efficient, and better equipped for high passenger volumes. Boy, that sounds familiar. Under President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, the federal government is investing in new terminals, digital customs, and better docking facilities. The crying, wailing, and gnashing of teeth. These changes are already helping ships turn around faster and offer smoother entry for guests. Cruise passengers don't just admire the view, they spend money. Every arrival means income for local restaurants, shops, and guides. Passengers often go on excursions, book transportation, eat in local spots, and buy souvenirs. This creates direct earnings for small business near the port. Tour guides, taxi drivers, souvenir vendors, and beach clubs all see the impact. Some towns now rely heavily on cruise days to sustain jobs and local income. When cruise arrivals go up, local economies grow. That's why tourism leaders want to keep this momentum going in the second half of the year. The Bahamas, we're almost finished with this. The Bahamas is one of the most visited cruise destinations in the world. In 2023, the country saw 7.8 million cruise tourists. In 2025, numbers remain strong. The Caribbean, which includes the Bahamas, accounts for about 43% of all global cruise routes. Amazing. This is the top region for cruising in the world. Cruise passengers stop at places like Nassau, Freeport, and Great Stirrup Cay. They swim, eat seafood, and enjoy beach activities. Many U.S.-based cruises go to the Caribbean because it's close. The warm weather, fun tours, and friendly locals keep people coming back. Cruise bookings are already strong for the rest of the year. Summer and winter seasons look promising. Experts say 2025 may set a new record for global cruise passengers. The Cruise Lines International Associations expect nearly 38 million people to cruise by year end. From the sunny Caribbean to ancient ports in Asia, cruise tourism is back and stronger than ever. With smart planning and more choices, 2025 looks like a great year for cruising. Everywhere else, except the Cayman Islands. But I do want to say,
and I would just add that, I think the Cayman Islands government lost a fantastic opportunity by failing to attend the Florida Cruise Caribbean Association meeting that was held a few months ago in St. Lucia, getting an idea what the consequences of not building a cruise terminal will mean for the Cayman Islands, in particular with what it will mean and how it will boost the Caribbean region, and likewise, perhaps even hearing how partnerships on the Pacific side of the cruise equation are also looking to work together in the name of infrastructure, stability, and, of course, the economic benefits. These countries, Japan, Greece, United States, Mexico, they're not doing this by happenstance. They're doing so because they understand the strategic economic value
importance
that cruise tourism represents. And I just felt that article really jumped off the pages because it provides that statistical hard evidence to suggest this is not a Cayman issue. It's not even a Caribbean issue. It is an opportunity issue, a revenue earning issue, a popular in high demand option for travelers who want something more than the traditional, let's spend 7 days in one location when we can spend 7 days in multiple locations at a time, and the value that brings to the economy of, again, some major players on the Pacific side, but again, we see the Bahamas taking advantage of it, and arguably many of our competitors here closer to home will be benefiting. Again, what did they say? It's not happening by accident. How is it happening? Improved infrastructure.
Smart planning.
Exactly. So I just thought it was an article that was worth not missing, but quite to the contrary, showing the strategic value that cruise tourism represents. And that is the argument that you certainly were making during the referendum campaign, that arguably a lot of folks basically allow themselves to be led by folks with really no skin in the game.
Yeah, I think, again, like I've said before, I think that a lot of persons were led by individuals that really at the end of the day for their own selfish purposes don't want to see cruise. But again, I will stress that the cruise industry plays an important role. I'll give you the example again of the Turtle Center, where arguably 60% of the revenues comes from cruise. So a lot of these places that locals as well as stay-over visitors get to enjoy are in large part funded by cruise. And this is why I say if you really check it out, it's foundational.
And that's why I can add also the hypocrisy of those who were leading, who were at the forefront of the anti-cruise conversation, certainly using the environment when it was convenient for them as something we should strive to protect for future generations. Those same persons are behind the push to extend the runway, another 200 and odd feet into the North Sound.
And they see no environmental issues.
But they see no environmental issues there. But when we appreciate what the North Sound is and its value to our local environment, maybe somewhere, somehow, a light bulb might go off in the minds of those eco-warriors and eco-activists to show, well, hang on, this isn't exactly a good thing either. Or maybe they'll just also be led blindly by some of the same persons who clearly have ulterior motives.
I've got to look up something here on BBC. You got to work with me on this there. Well, the resident pulling back extreme environmental legislation. Let's see if I can find this article on here. Again, the article supposedly I'm being pointed to is amongst other things where the UK is working. Both the U.S. and Brazil are pulling back on extreme environmental legislation. Boy, that sounds like a comfort. And again, I know it sounds so conspiracy theories, but we really need as a country, as far as I'm concerned, we really need to have a proper think tank. We need to be a country that encourages and respects public debate and discourse on all of these issues, and to be able to do so respectfully and not necessarily being offended because our ideas might actually be wrong, but actually looking at the facts. Because if you focus on cruise tourism, you're going to see that the facts will bear out. That cruise tourists are actually spending on the per hour spend is more than what you're getting from stayovers. And it doesn't have the impact on the environment that stayover does. Why people miss that, it's beyond me. But whatever it is, like I said, if it doesn't make sense logically, then chances are it's probably something emotional. But either way, I'm trying to see, Austin, I don't know if you can help me, but there is supposedly, new Brazil development law.
Yeah, they're calling it the devastation bill, suggesting that Brazil's lawmakers have passed. This is from The Guardian. Oops, don't break it, Austin.
Well, it was being pointed to BBC, but
BBC, yeah. The Guardian has an article as well. I was gonna share it with you, but let's see. Yes, I accept. President has 15 days to approve or veto legislation that critics say will lead to vast deforestation and destruction of indigenous communities. Brazilian lawmakers have passed a bill that drastically weakens the country's environmental safeguards and is seen by many activists as the most significant setback for the country's environmental legislation in the past 40 years. The new law, widely referred to as the devastation bill, had already approved by the Senate in May and was passed in Congress in the early hours of Thursday by 267 votes to 116, despite opposition from more than 350 organizations and social movements. It now goes to the president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who has 15 working days to either approve or veto it. Even if he vetoes the legislation, there's a strong chance that the predominantly conservative conference will overturn that, triggering a likely battle in the Supreme Court. Let's just see. One of the main points of criticism of the law is that it allows projects classified as having medium polluting potential to obtain an environmental license through a self-declared online forum without prior impact studies or regulatory review. Previously, this fast-track process was limited to low-risk activities. According to something I can't pronounce, this will affect about 90% of licensing procedures in Brazil, including those for mining companies and the vast majority of agricultural activities. We're seeing the implosion of Brazil's environmental licensing system that is going to become fully self-licensing, where a company just clicks a button and the permit gets printed. The law also states that agencies responsible for protecting the rights of indigenous communities will only have a say in licensing processes for projects located on officially recognized territories, excluding more than 30% of indigenous lands and over 80% of some other areas, again, which I can't pronounce the word. I'm not even going to try. Areas.
You just make a beeping sound. Beep.
Yeah. If the law does come into force, it is likely to trigger a wave of legal challenges, as activists and legal experts argue that it violates the Constitution and previous rulings of the Supreme Court. Blah, 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 blah. The law also creates a major embarrassment for both Brazil and President Lula just months before the country is scheduled to host COP30 in the Amazon in November. And of course, COP30 is a big environmental conference. The last one, I think, was hosted in India, if I wasn't mistaken correctly. COP29. This law is a serious setback and will shape how Brazil is viewed by those who see it as a potential leader. So there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're gets about winding up on the program. But again, I want to remind persons as well that we have the honor to have Sterling Dwayne Ebanks coming in here in the program tomorrow. We do already have guest booked for the following Wednesday as well, but we shan't announce that right now. We shan't do that at this point. We will do one at a time. But we have the honor to have the Sterling Dwayne Ebanks coming here in the program tomorrow. It should be between 5 and 6-ish, and who knows, it might go on a little further. But looking forward to that discussion. I hope that you are as well. And, of course, we always want to thank you for listening to the program and hope that you will continue to share it with others so that we can get even more persons listening. And let's see if we can just continue to engage in our discussion. And again, I'll just give the public announcement again in relation to the summer camp, FC International having the summer camp that's going to take place on August 11th to the 15th. And again, you get some free T-shirts, you got free meals, again, for boys and girls between ages 4 and 16. And I think the number to call was 323. Let me just double check. 323-1993, I'm pretty sure is what it was. But let me see. 1 segundo. Give me those segundos and I'll tell you. Yeah, it is 323-1993. That's 323-1993. Please give them a call. Please find some way to get your kids involved. Get them out of the house. Get them into the sun. Get them their heart pumping. Have them breathing some fresh air. It'll work miracles for them. Which, by the way, I'd like to just say as a side note, I think that we're making ourselves a very unhealthy society when we have everybody staying in the house and the foods that we're eating, and no wonder we're seeing more anxiety and depression and all those sort of things. At least from my experience, that's definitely one of the reasons why some of those things are actually taking place. 6:25 here in the studio, not long to go, about another 5 minutes. Not sure what we can enter into that point. I want to say on as a side note, Do you realize there's a significant piece? We have now got to the point in the world that we accept that there's UFOs. Yes. I mean, this is important, and I don't know why it's not more in the news. There was a time, UFOs? No, there's no UFOs. We're denying that. Well, they're not denying it now. I think they're changing the name. Maybe that helps to make it a bit more palatable. I think it's now UAPs.
Yes.
Well, a rose by any other name is still a rose. And so at the end of the day, we are now accepting that we have UFOs. And this is not newsworthy. This is not something that we're talking about. Of course, they're still downplaying it to some extent. But for whatever it's worth, it's not really in the mainstream media. I guess everybody has criticized it for so long that nobody wants to do the about face, Mr. Harris, and admit that, hey, we played a role in this duping. But the bottom line is, let's just be clear as we end the program today, that regardless of what your position was, and this is a very good one for all those persons who always want to criticize the other individual as being a conspiracy theorist, Everybody was branded as conspiracy theorists as you talked about UFOs. This is nonsense. It'd be a little bit like talking that cruise tourism is good for the country or that the UK is not meaning as well all the time. You'd be branded as a conspiracy theorist. So the UFO, just search it up for yourself in case you think that I'm cuckoo. UFOs exist. They're calling UAPs, but a rose by any other name is still a rose. Time check, Mr. Harris. Looks like you got about 3 minutes.
Approaching 2 minutes.
Approaching 2 minutes. Avanzando. All right, what else I can say in 2 minutes? I don't know what I can say in 2 minutes, Mr. Harris, other than I've enjoyed the program, even though my colleague is a little bit sick in the throat. I don't know. I guess I could ask you if you got around to trying the ginger and milk yet, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, logic just said to me, if mucus is part of my problem in the back of my throat, then dairy products is not necessarily the first bit of advising of the right course. And I did sort of reach out, whilst not to my family doctor. He'd be disappointed that I'm saying this. I didn't reach out to my family doctor, but just by chance, I got a call from a doctor who heard the program and heard the recommendation and also heard my voice. And he said, Austin, in all deference and, to your lady caller who was obviously calling with concern and well-intended, I would not advise you from a medical standpoint to consume any dairy products with your voice sounding as badly as it does, with or without the
home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This is Global 103.1.